Hello, welcome to part 2 of our Ling Basics Guide. Reminder that this is game version 4.2. In this part, we're going to talk more about strategy and go over some basic game plan elements, which will build on the essential tools we already went over. We'll also suggest some players to check out and cap it off with a brief character summary. Don't forget about all the resource links I mentioned in part 1. Those may be very useful to you, especially if you are brand new to the game. I've included those once again in the video description below. But enough of that, let's get going. AOP is well known even to players that have little Ling experience. It's the one thing opponents have to game plan for, otherwise you'll run right over them. Reason being is that it has an absurdly low hitbox, which she can make even lower by pressing down. So your opponent has to have some solid lows and low hitting mids to stop it. That being said, let's talk about your AOP options. First, you can't block. You can do some scooching forward and backward, you can jump, you can stand into back turn, you can do a forward roll, or you can just cancel by pressing up. Those last two options recover full crouch, although the roll can go right back to AOP if you want. You can also do a side roll with your grab inputs, one of which rolls left, the other right. You will automatically do a normal grab unless you hold back, in which case the roll recovers full crouch. So you do have some movement options if you don't feel like attacking, and if you manually go to AOP, note that she shifts ever so slightly to her right, which adds even more evasion. Now for attacks, let's start with the actual stance moves. AOP 4 is your fastest move at I-12, works very similar to a generic while standing 4, so a safe mid check. AOP 2-1 is a powerful mid-mid knockdown splatting natural combo, only a tad slower at I-13, but both hits are unsafe, although you can cancel the second hit to back turn for some mind games, something you'll see Ling players do quite a bit. Beyond that, AOP is actually less about being quick and more about being evasive. AOP up forward 3 is your I-13 hop kick, instant crush, but also has string options to fit your flavor. Up forward 3-3 and up forward 3-4 will both still juggle, but provide additional cover if you think they might block up forward 3. Just be aware up forward 3-4 is still punishable on block, and up forward 3-3 can be ducked. Up 4-3-1 is a safe mid-mid option, but no juggle, but going from a very low crouching stance to an instant low crush gives up 4-3 a lot of power. Aside from a raw jump, AOP up 4-4 is your only other low crush and can be used to a similar end since you have the option to go back turn, go back to AOP, or finish the second hit. Just be aware that this is a mind game heavy string since you are punishable on block no matter what option you choose. The reward on it is low, so use it for setup purposes. For high crushes, you have a ton to choose from. AOP 3, 4 slide 3, forward 4, down 1, and down 1+2. 4 slide 3 is probably the most annoying since it's a power low that offers a free follow-up on hit. Works well with down 1+2 since they're not far off in terms of speed. AOP 3 and down 1 are really good for counter hit traps, the former being a counter hit launcher, and the latter will go to a powerful hit throw. AOP forward 4 is mostly there to play some silly string games with, but both forward 4 and down 1 are the same speed as AOP 1-2, which is a mid-high natural combo that goes to back turn, as well as AOP 1+2, a safe power mid bouncer. Your only other attacks are your delayed jump attacks, which can certainly be useful at times since up forward neutral 3 is a low launcher, which puts pressure on them to block low, and can be mixed with up forward neutral 4. Overall, AOP gives you plenty of attack and movement options to keep them guessing. If you transition to AOP from a move, how you approach it will of course be dictated by your situation after. For instance, if you go to AOP from 4 slide 3 and it's blocked, a while standing 4 or similar will stop you from doing anything, whereas up forward 4 doesn't force crouch, so if they're swinging at you on block, AOP will go under most things. This largely boils down to experimentation and character matchups, and some characters will have better anti-AOP moves than others, so freestyle as much as you can to figure out what works and what doesn't. Last thing to mention is don't limit yourself to AOP moves. At this point, we've mentioned a lot of things that recover full crouch, like just manually canceling AOP for instance. Take those opportunities to introduce your full crouch while standing stuff. While standing 1, 2, 3, and 4 are all safe mids. Her while standing 4 is really good, by the way. While standing 2 and 3 are counter hit launchers. While standing 2 can be held to be a normal launcher, and both while standing versions can go to back turn. While standing back 4, which can also be done from neutral as quarter circle back 4, is another safe counter hit launcher. You have 3 lows that you can annoy with, all of which have string options and can go to back turn or AOP. There's a lot you can mess with there, so again, don't limit yourself. Try to throw as much as you can at your opponent. The more they have to think about, the harder it is for them to play defense and the more opportunities you'll have for big damage. Now let's talk back turn. Since Ling has a robust back turn game, it's often looked at as a complete stance called rain dance, but to keep things simple, we're going to keep referring to it as back turn. Just be aware that you'll see RDS a lot in notations. While back turn isn't naturally evasive like AOP, you still want to use it in the same way. That is to say, you want to constantly transition in and out and keep them guessing when or if at all you're going to transition. She can of course manually back turn with either back 3+4 or full crouch down back 3+4, and even has the little slight sidestep to it like AOP. Once in back turn, unlike most characters, Ling stays in back turn when she forward dashes or sidesteps, which right away gives you more movement options than most. In fact, her back turn sidestep is really good and quick. You can do her side spins. She also has a special back spin, which is back 3+4. Turning around after back 3+4 will give you even more space, so very good for baiting whiffs. She has a dangerous forward roll that has a very low hurt box and a mid launcher follow-up if you sneak under something. Otherwise, the roll stays in back turn and you can keep pressuring. She also has her regular 1+4 parry and forward 1+2, which is a safe mid that will parry punches. And for more attacks, you have back turn back 3, which is an I-10 safe knockdown splatter, the generic hop kick, which is a fast mid launcher, and the crouch jab to help stop buttons. Back turn 3 and down 4 are your high risk but scary crush options, so despite not being able to block, you have an enormous range of movement and crush counter hit tools. But a lot of Ling's focus on frustrating the opponent so that you can nab an easy back turn 4, which is a risky but extremely quick, rangy mid launcher. Reason for this is that Ling lacks a really scary mix-up game in back turn, at least without rage. Back turn 3 is your go-to, which is quick, rangy, and gives a big +7 on hit, but unless you think you're going to nab a counter hit and can finish the string, down 3 doesn't do much damage by itself and has no special evasive properties. Still, you can use it and her other mids to try to bait out a response, namely back turn 1, 2, 1+2, forward 3, and 3+4. Aside from back turn 1+2, these all leave you in back turn and either have string options for cover or give you favorable frames to do other evasive stuff. For example, doing a roll is very common after back turn 3+4. You do have grab options, but like we mentioned in essential moves, the slow speed can give those away. Still useful if they're really turtled up or confused, just be careful with them. Returning to the topic of baiting though, you're going to use your transition moves in the same manner, meaning that you need to keep them guessing as to when you're going to finish strings or go to back turn so that you can get back initiative and bait out some responses. Down forward 1 is one of her best and most annoying moves, so constantly harassing with this is never a bad thing. Ling players fell in love with down back 2, the new season 4 move, so definitely use lots of that, especially if you notice your opponent stepping left to take advantage of her weak side. But her other transitions can be just as good. 1 down 2, for instance, is -3, which is enough to allow you to still move around, parry, or crush something. It's also +8 on hit, which sets up well for your I-16 counter hit launcher back turn 1. But any of your transition moves on hit will make back turn 4 uninterruptible, so make sure they know you're willing to do that so that you can get them to turtle up a little bit. Also, as a general note, it takes Ling 6 frames to turn around and block, so if you're unwilling to do an attack or movement tool, be sure to factor that in. But again, you have a lot to work with here, so freestyle and figure out what works and what doesn't. We haven't said it outright yet, but when we say freestyle, what we really mean is that you need to be evasive and annoying. The entirety of Ling's kit, down to her naturally small hurt box, is designed to force your opponent to use moves that have specific anti-movement or anti-stance purposes. No move will cover everything, so once you see them favoring one type of move, you switch to another type of style to force a different move. When they finally get sloppy, you punish either with a whiff punish or a counter hit. For example, using lots of AOP forces them to use specific anti-AOP lows and low hitting mids, but if you're also doing a lot of sideways movement, they're going to have to lean heavily on tracking or homing moves. If you start AOP rolling, now they have to do something that tracks and hits low. In essence, you should be forcing your opponent to hyper-focus on certain tools, then you can counter those tools. If they're being sloppy and not using those moves, then your evasive tools will just outright win you the match. The only other option is for them not to take the bait and simply turtle up. It can be tough at times for Ling to chase down really good backdashes, but just keep chipping away until they start swinging again. Because of all this though, she's very heavy on setups in Oki. It's impossible to go over everything here, but we've already given you the gist since you're going to use your evasive tools a lot for your setups. So hit the lab and be sure to be very experimental in your matches, and you'll quickly and easily find some nasty stuff. Ultimately, this is a good news, bad news situation. Ling has so many things she can throw at her opponent, but deciding exactly what can be tricky. For instance, we didn't mention her hypnotic stance, mostly because it's a very specialized stance that can be difficult to use, but it's still yet another thing to throw out there. You also have a forward 3+4 roll you can use for approach, as well as a bunch of moves that can be good in isolated situations, like down back 3, back 1, back 2, and up 1+2. But at least when you first start, really focus on leveling up your AOP game and learn how to best get to back turn. To do this, you really have to be observant and identify tendencies, but you'll be unstoppable in no time. As always, we'll start by recommending Applay. It's the best quick info resource out there. Once you start to get comfortable with Tekken and you want to pick up a character on the fly, there's nothing better than this. One of the stronger US players, Cuddle mixes her time between Alyssa and Ling, but certainly more than enough Ling matches out there to see. Streams regularly, but tons of content out there in general, endless resource, so check her out. A big fan favorite, Japan's YUYU, was actually very active in Tekken prior to the arrival of primetime esports. She then rocketed in popularity when she came out of retirement, so to speak, and defeated Tanukana in a first to 10 exhibition. A set that's now pretty famous. Incredibly strong player and another that streams regularly, but lots out there to watch. Speaking of Tanukana, she is another strong Japanese player. For non-Japanese speakers, it may be a little tough to follow her content since she mostly streams on a Japanese platform, but if you can navigate that, you'll be good to go. Still plenty of stuff on YouTube to find. And lastly, as always, don't take this list as final. There are a surprisingly large number of Ling players out there, so search around and you'll certainly find more. This brings us to the end of our guide. Ling is definitely a character for players that like to get really creative and rely less on blocking and more on evasion. But even with that unorthodox style, Ling is still a really strong character. She has a really good array of lows, which makes her mix-up game strong. She has good counter hits, good whiff punishers, incredible Oki, and is a surprisingly good block punisher. Her damage is also way higher than you would think it should be. She does have some range issues and can struggle in matchups where her opponent has good anti-AOP or anti-back turn tools, but she has more than enough to rack up the wins. So keep at it, and I wish you the best of luck in your training. And with that, thanks for checking out this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications here on YouTube so that you get alerted when a new video drops. Twitch and Twitter links are also down below. Lastly, huge thank you to our patrons. The more support we have, the more resources we can devote to channel content. So again, I can't thank everyone enough for considering supporting the Patreon. Stay safe, everyone, and we'll catch you next time.